This is one of the rare kinds of events that we are having actually here, an event which is sponsored by all the three National Science Academies of India, with an idea to basically discuss something that is very relevant to this region, especially the mountain ecology. Mountains are very important from the global perspective because half of the global population gets its fresh water supply from the mountains, and most of the biodiversity hotspots are found in the mountain regions, and around 20% or 18.5% of the land surface is basically the mountains. Now, and they provide us a huge number of economic goods and ecosystem services. And the challenges that there are to the mountains, be it the climate change, be it the growing biological invasions, being the growing anthropogenic perturbations, disturbances, they have really challenged the people who live in these mountains. They are very vulnerable part of the community. So it is in that context that we have in this 3 days lecture workshop sponsored by all these three science academies, right from what actually mountains are, how they are structured, how they are configured, and what is the extent of biodiversity in the mountains, cultural diversity in the mountains, and how this mosaic of resources and the diversity in mountains is influenced by the impacts of climate change, largely retreat of glaciers, growing biological invasions, erosion of biodiversity, and reconstruct the climatic history. How can we reconstruct the climatic history of these Himalayan mountains to basically come up ultimately with the effective predictive models for its management? So a whole bunch of talks is aimed at sensitizing the graduate students, the postgraduate, and the young scholars, young faculty especially, about these challenging issues. And most important part of this lecture workshop is that every lecture is actually supplemented with a hands-on training. So with those hands-on trainings, they are equipped to understand first of all theoretically the challenges well, and then practically deal with those challenges instead of becoming the part of the problem to these issues globally and regionally and locally. Here in the Kashmir Himalayan context, we want these youngsters to become part of the solution instead, and I'm pretty sure that this workshop will go a long way in doing that job. Professor Umashankar is a celebrated speaker, I must tell you. It is always a delight and a treat to listen to him, and he always discusses new ideas in a very different way. Since he is a biologist by training, he has all his life actually worked in the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore. But at the end of his career, he came over to an engineering system in the IIT Jammu, and the kind of value that he added through his understanding of surfaces, making use of biological systems, is phenomenal. And this has opened up a very new discipline, of course, but you call as bio-inspired engineering, and he has actually floated that course there. So as you listened in the lecture, the whole bunch of examples that he gave, how exciting it is at times if you look at very simple things around in a slightly inquisitive way. The only thing is this nature is whole an open laboratory. The only thing is we need to ask questions. There's a famous saying that you should ask every breakfast at least 2 new questions. Doesn't matter that at the supper you feel that they were worthless questions. So he inspired the young faculty and the young students to ask new questions, think differently, think out of box, and most importantly connecting the dots using the surface biology inspired engineering. It's a great learning, and I'm sure that the dividends would go a long way. So in that sense, in our University of Kashmir, there has been a great deal of research happening over the period of years in silos, I would say. I think this is the time when faculty members, different labs, mentors, students need to brush shoulders, come together on a cup of tea, and just we should have a kind of facility in the campus where this dialogue is facilitated, so that this crosstalk happens between related disciplines, even at times unrelated disciplines. Apparently there's always something new learning from the other disciplines. So I think in the context of this new education policy, university is of course under the leadership of our present Vice Chancellor looking at how best we are going to be more interdisciplinary in our discourse. But more, of course, needs to be done, and I'm sure that everybody realizes this need, and in due course of time, we will be making a larger impact through collaboration between the faculty members of the departments. And fortunately, at times you will find our faculty members having collaborations across the world, but not at times within the departments or within other with other departments. Because gone are the days when we used to get students engaged in sort of any kind of research. Now jobs are not out there in the market easily as they used to be earlier. So once we train PhD students or once we train our postgraduate students, it's important that this degree, this understanding helps them to support themselves, to support others in the society, of course. And this is the only way. That means you have to use your knowledge that you gain from the university level discourse to think differently about the problems and come out with the solutions to so many plethora of problems that we have around. And this kind of lecture and these kind of workshops play a great role actually in inculcating that mindset and in creating that, I'm sure that after the lecture today, the thought process of the participants was very different. They were very excited. And we have been actually working, I personally have been working in an interdisciplinary way for all through my career, and I have been the big beneficiary of this collaborative research with all international, with 3 major international projects that I did run into US, into German, and into Canadian, and many national network projects. The learning ultimately is that this cross-fertilization of ideas and talking to the people from other disciplines brings you very different learning. And now we need to be very practical in terms of our what for are we going into the academics. People from India have all across the world created so many different success stories. Those success stories from our University of Kashmir, from other regions, they need to be told to our students so that the inspiration happens. And that's the precise role that these workshops are going to do.